The left-wing gender insanity being pushed on our children is an act of child abuse. Very simple. Here's my plan to stop the chemical, physical, and emotional mutilation of our youth. On day one, I will revoke Joe Biden's cruel policies on so-called gender-affirming care. Ridiculous. A process that includes giving kids puberty blockers, mutating their physical appearance, and ultimately performing surgery on minor children. Can you believe this? I will sign a new executive order instructing every federal agency to cease all programs that promote the concept of sex and gender transition at any age. I will then ask Congress to permanently stop federal taxpayer dollars from being used to promote or pay for these procedures and pass a law prohibiting child sexual mutilation in all 50 states. It'll go very quickly.
To the treetops, from the sandbox, we had it stacking so we wouldn't even fall. A lot of dead limbs had to cut off. Riding with fake niggas made me cautious. You did me wrong, so salty. I had to get in my bag. Tell them people you ain't really honest. I got that for you. I got that for you.
Are you aware of any group, formal or informal, behind the gay and lesbian movement?
I know of no group behind it. I mean, the major front group for them is the Human Rights Campaign. And notice how skillful these groups on both sides are in terminology and labeling. It's like choice with abortion. So Human Rights Campaign, doesn't that convey that who could be against human rights?
This is not a civil rights issue. This is a human rights issue. Everybody here, I'm sorry if you can't hear me because of the color of my hair. It's so distracting. But, you know, we're here, and we're queer, and we're not going to go anywhere. So the policies don't need to adhere to our special module, but the policies do need to state that it is okay to be different. State that it is okay to be different.
State that it is okay to be different.
What up, y'all? Bam TV. Well, apparently she's here and she's queer and she wants to be different. Thing is, you can keep that to yourself and leave my children out of that. That's the dilemma for today's episode. Pay attention.
Stop indoctrinating children. And this teacher, what really made up my mind was when I went through their social media and I saw that they said, we're weaponizing the rainbow. I'm dressing this way because I can't come out. So I want a conversation started with these children. There's a plan in place. I have nothing against that. I have nothing against people doing what they want to do in their own lives. That is between them and whatever they got going on. What I care about is when people indoctrinate the children, because that is up to the parents and the parents alone.
There should be mirrors for children to see themselves in the world because kids know who they are at a very young age. Number one, proven. Number two, they should have windows to look through and see people who are not like them. And there should be sliding glass doors to invite them through.
And that, says Kate Oakson, is the entire premise of the state's LGBTQ inclusive curriculum that was signed into law 1 year ago and required for all school districts to adopt.
Schools were supposed to, in September of this year, be adopting measures and instructional materials. Okay, so policy should have been in place and instructional materials should have been improved statewide.
But Oakson says the COVID pandemic forced schools to find creative ways to deliver even the most basic core curriculum, leaving little time for adapting new LGBTQ material into their lessons.
But all things considered, we're seeing the rollout of LGBTQ inclusive curriculum all throughout our state. And it's really exciting to know that there are young LGBTQ people participating in lessons where they see themselves reflected.
It's really exciting to know that there are young LGBTQ people participating in lessons where they see themselves reflected.
Hey, question, Dyke Broad. How is it a fact that kids know exactly who they are when they're kids? I would even ask that question to a teenager, an adult, and a confused peon like yourself. And to that first parent, he's absolutely right. I absolutely run that back. Pay attention.
What I care about is when people indoctrinate the children, because that is up to the parents and the parents alone.
I'm ashamed that we're even having this conversation to begin with. And we should go by the facts. And the facts are, there are not two sexes. Thank you. And we should go by the facts. And the facts are, there are not two sexes.
And the facts are, there are not two sexes.
Hey, stupidity. I'm ashamed that you came up and wasted everyone's time with that dumb shit that you said out of your face. Go live alone. Pay attention.
And the facts are, there are not two sexes. There are not two sexes. There are not two sexes.
All things considered, we're seeing the rollout of LGBTQ inclusive curriculum all throughout our state. And it's really exciting to know that there are young LGBTQ people participating in lessons where they see themselves reflected. We know when LGBTQ people see themselves reflected in the lessons, rates of bullying decrease.
And it's not just good for those students, says Christian Fuscarino.
We also know that it impacts non-LGBTQ students too, because they see people that are different from them reflected in the lessons. And that way they're not going to pick on someone because they're different. They're going to know that maybe their favorite computer scientist or their favorite author is LGBTQ, and that's a cool thing.
How do you respond to people who say, I don't want my kids being taught about gender identity. It's confusing for a kindergartner, and they shouldn't have to take on that kind of subject at that age?
That's an adult already creating a taboo or creating some othering mechanism to talk about these things. We're really asking questions about how identity has impacted Americans, how identity has impacted people throughout history with the way that their inventions, their contributions have been perceived, and what sort of fallout has occurred because they've been othered in these ways.
The term othered, meaning to view or treat a person or group of people as intrinsically different from oneself. Oakson acknowledges that not all districts are open to this curriculum, and the law gives some flexibility.
There is some subjective language in it that says where appropriate. And so when we're talking about middle and high school levels, every district is going to respond differently based on their home community, based on past events in their district, based on their teaching staff.
Sean Highland is leading an effort to give families the choice to opt out of this curriculum.
There's a bill in the Assembly and the Senate that would give parents a voucher opt-out to go to the school of their choice if the public school refuses to accommodate their request to opt out of lessons and materials that violate their beliefs regarding sex, sexuality, and gender identity.
He said his group has the support of people from many different backgrounds.
We just want every student to be respected, that whatever their belief system is for teachers to tell the students to respect one another. Unfortunately, it seems as though one belief system is stigmatized, which is the conservative historical view of sexuality, and only one is elevated and taught as acceptable.
The bill doesn't yet have a hearing. As for the desired LGBTQ curriculum, advocates expect a much stronger rollout across the state as schools resume fully in person in September.
And all of this leads to them using the trick bag of human rights. Again, I showed a clip at the beginning of the video of congressmen talking about how the LGBT uses that word being human rights, or those words being human rights, and how they're able to push certain propaganda because of that. Pay attention.
Are you aware of any group, formal or informal, behind the gay and lesbian movement?
I know of no group behind it. I mean, the major front group for them is the Human Rights Campaign. And notice how skillful these groups on both sides are in terminology and labeling. It's like choice with abortion. So Human Rights Campaign, doesn't that convey that who could be against human rights?
Who could be against human rights?
Too often I see misinformation, bigotry, racism, and all kinds of other forms of bullying, and unfortunately, it often goes by without comment or defense. They're only here because this is entertainment. It is an opportunity to get another mention by Ben Shapiro, and it is another opportunity to attack people who are different from her.
Just teach our children, please, what they need to know academically and leave the rest of the teaching to us as parents and grandparents. Anyone who thinks that what we are doing here for our children is entertainment, you are sadly mistaken.
Thank you, Ms.
And
Tappy.
please note,
Thank you.
we are not the small group. Thank you.
Children learn how to treat others by watching us. Knowing this, I am consistently flabbergasted at the increasing attempt of many parents to rid classrooms of anyone or any lessons that are different than their core life experiences. This desire is peak privilege at its finest.
The real issue, as I'm sure many of you have unpacked, is their gender identity and how it does not align with the belief of those parents. Thus, we are all here. How incredibly immature and, quite frankly, brutish to bully your way through life in hopes of getting your way.
Immature. This coming from a nappy-headed peon like that brother up there, whose name is probably Thurgood. Don't get your slave-looking ass on. We don't want that being taught to our kids, period, nigga. What you do, what weird, freaky-ass shit you do in your house is what you do in your time. Oh, and I also got a nasty little song that they feel about our kids. We need to protect them. Like, share, and subscribe. And make sure that you pay attention. Peace.
We'll convert your children. Someone's gotta teach them not to hate. We're coming for them. We're coming for your children. We're coming for them. We're coming for your children.
Spirit is strained and you limited to change. The lyrics in your limericks are changed. A different hook, the way the sentences arranged. More demented in your deliverance, more sinister in your slang. Sounds more belligerent when it's sang. The truth is limitless in its range. If you drop a T and look at it in reverse, it could hurt. Look at the grimaces of the pain, and it's worse when it works and your membership is gained. But you forgetting the proof diminishes in the flames like poof. The media pours images in your brain of the score of the war where militants are slain. The faces of the guilty where innocence is proclaimed, and they filthy. The deaf ears are the winners, the listeners are the lames. Of the ballad of the man that the son of a minister has became so.